We are really trying for a very prompt start and running of the evening. I know that there are lots of questions, and so to make sure that we have a chance to hear from all of you and from those at home, welcome also. So friends, I am Rabbi Charlie Ginsky, Chief Executive Officer of Liberal Judaism and one of the co-leads of Progressive Judaism. Welcome to the LJS. It's really lovely to see you here and also to those of you online. This, I understand, is our first hustings for the Board of Deputies for this year's presidential and vice presidential elections. So in good Jewish tradition, helping us to remember that we are in a religious building, and so let's begin with the Shehechianu, very appropriate way to start this. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, eternal our God, who's kept us, sustained us, and enabled us to begin such a prestigious evening.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Charlie. My co-chair of the Progressive Deputies, Tony, please take a seat there. Yes, a couple of announcements. First, if you have a mobile phone with you, please could you turn it off or onto silent? That will greatly help the proceedings to move smoothly. It's great to have all the presidential candidates with us, and I want to thank each of you for allowing us to have the vice presidential debate first, and that is because two of our number have to get back to Manchester this evening. Are we okay with the sound?
Do you want us to switch things off? If you want us to...
Yeah, apparently they...
Sorry, I'm not mic'd up.
Yeah, so we'll have to hand you a mic.
Oh, well, if necessary, if we just swap, yeah.
If that's okay. So, great. Is that it? Is that sound working for everybody?
Nice to see you, Denise.
Yeah?
Is that better if it's off?
Okay, and I'd also like to welcome Ben Crown here as our Treasurer nominee for the next triennium. Are we okay with the sound? Can we go?
Do you have a spare mic? I'm sorry to be down. Do you have a spare?
I think all the mics
Okay.
are in use at the moment. Okay, I'm going to start anyway because time is very tight. I want to give you all a very warm welcome to the Liberal Jewish Synagogue. It's great to have you with us at the first hustings for this triennium's election. We have received quite a lot of questions, and we're going to have people asking questions, people who are both in the hall and people who are online. So I'm relying on my co-chair, Tony, to help me to get those questions from people who are online. I'm going to start by asking a question ourselves, just so that we can get things kicked off in a speedy fashion. And the question I'm going to ask each of you in turn is, what do you think are the most pressing challenges facing the board at this time? And what ideas do you have for addressing them effectively? So that's, what do you think are the most pressing challenges facing the board at this time? And what ideas do you have for addressing them effectively? And I'm going to ask you, Andrew, to take that question first.
Excuse me, Karen, could you just say how long they've got to answer?
Oh, actually...
No, we're not making our speeches first.
You're right. I'm really, really sorry. I'm really sorry. The first thing I'm going to do is give you 2 minutes to make a speech. Absolutely. I really apologise.
And then can you repeat the question?
And then I'll repeat the question. So, Andrew, would you like to have your 2 minutes now?
Thank you so much, and it's lovely to be here. It's hard to believe there have been so few honorary officers of the Board of Deputies from Reform, Liberal and Resourcey communities. So I'm asking you to elect me to be just the 9th HO for the Board of Deputies in 264 years. My grandparents were members of this synagogue, the Liberal Jewish Synagogue. My parents were founder members of Future Reform. I helped build RSY Netzer, chaired Exodus, the Soviet Jewry campaign of the Reform movement, and after being youth worker of 7 Reform synagogues, went on to be the chair of Reform Judaism. I am shaped through our rabbis and teachers and reflect from all I learned from 3 greats of blessed memory: Rabbi Hugo Grin, Rabbi John Rayner from this synagogue, and Rabbi Louis Jacobs. I learned from my special friend Rabbi Tony Bayfield and continue to learn from our inspirational leaders of today. I'll be here in our shuls to listen to Reform, Liberal and Masorti members and ensure their concerns are understood. 3 values are central to me. B'Tselem Elohim, we were all created in the image of God. We need to value each other. I'm Echadim Lev Echad, one people with one heart. We're one people bound to each other. And Tikkun Olam, repair the world. There is so much difference we can make in a world in need of such healing. I've 8 pledges. A board of deputies that collaborates both inside the community and in the wider world, delivering our agenda through co-working and co-production. A board of deputies is credible, trusted and strategic partner for national and local government. A board of deputies with a business book and a vision that has clear aims, with asks that are backed with detailed impact assessments, community research and lived experience. A board of deputies that works with all parts of the Jewish community. I pledge that I will listen to deputies and enable to fully participate in the board. I will ensure deputies shape the work of the board and there is transparency and meaningful reporting to deputies. I will focus on the age and gender disparities on the board, and I will build on my experience, particularly in London, Hertfordshire and Essex, and develop similar connections in policing, health, transport and local government, partnering with other faiths across the UK. I'm humbled to ask deputies to vote for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me in this shul. I'm standing for Vice President of the Board of Deputies, as I feel I've got the capabilities to do the job. I seek to empower deputies in the decision-making process, consistent with good government and effective decision-making. I've headed the Education Committee of the Jewish Representative Council of Greater Manchester and Region since 2015, and in that capacity I looked for gaps in what we might be offering the public. I bring people together interested in filling these gaps, and having established the group on firm foundations, I step away from day-to-day contact while keeping a benevolent eye on its progression. That is how I set up the Judaism for Schools program and the Northern Holocaust Education Group. As the Vice Chair of the Board's Regional Deputies Assembly and Regional Deputies Council, I campaigned for the appointment of a regional manager based in the regions, and this culminated in Sarah Radovan's appointment. I also guided a resolution through the CED, the Communities and Education Division of the Board, asking the Chair to inform its members while meeting with government ministers or officials so that they could suggest topics to be discussed when the meetings took place, assuming, of course, that they weren't emergency meetings and that we had at least a week to sort things out. Like Andrew, I'm inspired by a whole group of teachers, particularly Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Eliezer Berkowitz, Rabbi J.B. Soloveitchik, and the board. It's an advocacy body, and it must advocate for all Jews, regardless of age, gender, and sexual preference, and certainly regardless of denomination. Thank you. Sorry, my name was and is Jeremy Michelson, and I come originally from Manchester. Well, I come from London originally, but I've lived in Manchester for nearly 50 years.
And I'm Andrew Gilbert.
Denise? Yep.
But it's Adrian now.
Oh, it's Adrian. He's got.
I'll tell you what, if you hold it for time.
I'm also Jeremy Michelson. We're all Jeremy Michelson. My name is Adrian Cohen. Thank you, Karen and Tony. Thank you to LJS for hosting, and Rabbis Charlie and Josh. It's an honour to be here. I'm seeking the support of my fellow deputies at a time of unprecedented challenges to the community. I'm standing on the basis of my experience and expertise after 40 years of dedicated communal service and understanding the challenges for the community and our vision of the board. My involvement with the board goes back to the mid-1980s, when as the national chair, I represented the Union of Jewish Students, and I've since represented my local communities. I've always had a pluralistic perspective of the community, When I helped to establish the London Jewish Forum in 2006, we created a unique steering group drawn from across the religious and political spectrum, and LJF still maintains this cross-communal engagement. This is reflected in my own personal affiliations too, as an active member of both progressive and orthodox synagogues, and my role as chair of Labour Friends of Israel has been with an eye to ensuring Israel receives empathetic hearing across the political spectrum. The community faces unprecedented challenges following the terrible events of the 7th of October. Our thoughts are with the people of Israel, the families who have suffered the loss of loved ones, and the hostages and their families. I've been down to the Gaza envelope twice, and the things I've seen and the testimony I've heard are etched on my soul. We are all anxious about the terrible conflict and the human suffering, and we pray for a speedy resolution. Back home, we're very concerned about threats to community safety, policing, and the erosion of social cohesion. We must deal with these threats seriously, but we mustn't allow them to define who we are. And of course, we shouldn't forget the other challenges for our community too, around housing, cost of living, health, education, and transport. The board is in some ways a microcosm of the wider community, and it in turn reflects wider society. There's been increasing polarisation of opinion within the community. The board as a democratic institution has suffered from this. We are at our best when we seek compromise and where we can establish consensus. It's important we keep the community at the heart of everything that we do. The board has a long and illustrious history, and I will work hard to ensure a strong and sustainable future. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Rabbanim and Karen and Tony, I thank you for the warm welcome. My name's Denise Lester. I have been a deputy for 30 years and have served on two divisions, the Community and Education Division, and for many years on the Defence Division. As we all know, 7/10 represented a seismic shift in our community and the external world's view of us. The Board of Deputies exists to promote, protect and defend our community to government and to the external world, and the Board of Deputies could not be more relevant today. I'm standing because I believe as a solicitor advocate arguing on occasions, more often than not, difficult cases, I have the necessary skill set and agility to deal with going to government where the board has the most reach. I'm also media trained by the government and the BBC, and I represent the Law Society nationally and externally as an elected member of council, and I do also sit and chair external government an external government group within the justice system. The role of an HO is to support the presidents, to lead divisions, and to also have a sense of vision. In my role as a photographer and also as a grassroots activist, I've responded with agility not only to helping and leading the boards of deputies contingents for AJEX, sitting on the advisory board, fundraising in the past for JWA, UJI, and Jewish Care, but also more recently in connection with the Human Chain Project. Is my time up? My apologies. I hope that you will vote. Vote for me. It would be a privilege to stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, particularly good evening to everyone that's on Zoom and can't be with us for any reason, or whatever reason. I'm Owen Power, Deputy for York Liberal Jewish Community. I'm Owen Power, Deputy for York Liberal Jewish Community. I've absolutely no doubt that our work will be cut out for us, and it'll be a case of all hands on deck for the next triennium on anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and Israel hate. However, I'm also convinced that in the new triennium, the board will want to continue to develop and grow. And it's for that reason I'm standing for one of the vice president positions, because of my commitment to diversity and inclusion, particularly in the context of disability and the regions. Now, I'm conscious some people might think that I don't have the experience to be a vice president because I've been a deputy just for 2 years. But in response to that, I think it's important to mention transferable skills. Because I've got literally many, many years experience as a social activist campaigning in communities, as well as on project development. In addition to that, I've got lived experience of overcoming discrimination as a disabled, gay, Jewish man.
I'm going to have to hurry you, Owen.
And for that reason, I'm hoping that you will agree that my lived experience is more than enough to fulfill the needs of the job. Thank you.
Shall I take the mic? Just please have one on it. If I were Fiona Bruce, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, your panel. But thank you all so very much. I don't want to waste any more time, so I'm going to go with the first question, and then we will start taking questions from people online and in the hall who have already submitted questions. So the first question, which I asked you before, but I'm going to repeat it, is what do you think are the most pressing challenges facing the board at this time, and what ideas do you have for addressing them effectively? Owen.
That's an easy one, thank you. I'm sure no one's going to be surprised that I think it's a really, really pressing issue for the board to open up from the point of view of welcoming disabled Jews to be part of the community. It's not just a case of saying, come in, you're welcome, we love having you. It's more about ensuring that everything we do on the board is accessible, that disabled people can fully participate in meetings, campaigns, and so on and so forth, because I think we're losing out on a lot of skills because of that. And if you think about it, there is a significant percentage of the population who are disabled, but are very, very self-conscious about coming out because of the stigma that's still attached. So apart from obviously what I said at the beginning about the work on anti-Semitism, I do feel a real priority of the board is to make everything we do accessible to disabled Jews. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen. Adrian, pressing challenges and ideas you have for addressing them. You can take this mic because people seem to prefer it.
So, yeah, can people hear me? Yeah. Thank you. We have something of a burning deck at the moment
in lots of different ways. So clearly there's the situation both in Israel and also the situation here. Obviously our primary focus is here, but we're directly impacted by what happens, as we know, in Israel, and our feelings and identification with Israel. But nevertheless, there is a heightened sense of concern amongst the community at the present time. So that does create a burning deck. And there are also other issues which are sort of longer standing over the last couple of triennia, which I alluded to in my opening speech, which is to do with some of the polarisation within the community, which has had a deleterious effect upon the board as an institution. So if I'm elected, if we as a group, a number of us are elected, what we're going to have to deal with is to get ourselves into a position where we can work as a team. That's the first thing, to understand what our roles are going to be, both amongst ourselves and with the staff and with the executive and divisions. And the second thing that we need to do is to have a plan as to what's going to follow. That's really crucial. And all of that's got to be done with a considerable degree of consultation and engagement as well. Because part of the issue within the board is engendering a sense of ownership. And so it's quite easy to say all of that, but actually that's a huge, from a kind of management perspective, that is a huge undertaking to do. And as Owen says, it's going to be something that's going to keep us very, very occupied. And I don't really underestimate the importance of that. And we're going to be doing all of that against daily demands, because from my experience, what I understand of the board and also in my other communal roles, I can just say that every day there's something new at the present time. There's a new development, and the only thing that's predictable is the unpredictability. So that's really what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So challenges and your ideas for addressing them. Andrew.
Hi, this is big, and I agree with everything everyone said, but the challenges inside our community are also huge of how we do it together. And the JLC and the board have split in a way, and we've got a chance here, I think, to come up with an agenda that really shows we're working together in a very different way and not waste communal resources and money by doing things separately. And I'm going to put that big challenge down to anyone on the JLC, that we want to work together. We want to ensure that the public affairs work of the community is united and has got a real sense of purpose with it. And I also urge people to read David Hazoni's new book about these 65 things that you need to focus on, and it'll be launched at JW3 in the coming months. But there's some everyone is bringing out books post 710 about what you actually need to think about now. We've got more things happening and more ideas on how to actually respond to them. This is a good time of challenge, a time of innovation, a time of thought, and a time to really think lazily about actually how can we get things done together and make sure the Jewish community is Am Echad Im Lev Echad, speaking as one people with one heart.
Yep, absolutely. Apart from agreeing with everything that's been said before, I think that there is a serious problem that the board could be sidelined if we're not careful. I was reading only on the train down part of the JLC's new document, Forging the Future. And clearly, this is something that I only heard about yesterday in the Jewish News, and I managed to get hold of a copy. And it's got some very interesting things. We are short of money. We're going to have to really work on that. Because basically, that's one of the main issues. The JLC has got a lot of money. They can afford to do things that we can't. And therefore, we've really got to work on this. As Andrew quite rightly said, we've got to show that we are basically trying to do the same things, and we need to work together. But if we're going to be taken seriously, we've got to somehow find a way of increasing the number of staff, but also involving deputies and outsiders. People have commented that the growth of local bodies from thank you. grassroots organisations like CAA, like, well, in Manchester we had Northwest Friends of Israel, etc., and there are plenty of others. Is this a bad thing, or is this a comment on the board? Actually, I don't think so. I think if we can work with them, if we can empower them, but also make sure that, you know, they don't go off at a tangent and certainly don't become extreme. Recently, an organisation was set up called NAG, Northern Advocacy Group, which arranged a very, very good session with the BBC. Should the board have been doing that? I'm not sure. I think it's somehow we've got to harness this. Yeah, we've got to harness it together, and we're going to need, I think, more staff to do it.
I think that the key challenge of the board is to maintain its prominence and influence with government, because we've had a very supportive government, and we are looking to a change of government, and anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish feeling is there, and anti-Israel feeling is there across the surface. And as the most prominent democratically elected organisation, we need to be in a position to lead and reassure Jews across the UK and beyond that our community is a safe place to live in and it is vibrant. So I'm apolitical, so to me, I won't be compromised if there's whichever government in terms of any activity. Amongst the board itself, we've got a wealth of talent, and indeed we should have more deputies and encourage them from all different organisations and grow our under-35s observers, our students, and have a clear career path. But our talent is underutilised, and we need to be networking more effectively, cross-divisionally, and media monitoring and calling out when we need to call out. Regarding grassroots organisations, I worked very quickly with Marcel Noble to promote cross-communally the Lovelock Bridge Initiative and the Blow the Chauffeur for Hostages initiative. I've also worked with IBC, Israelis Building a Community, photographed charity events, because the power of image and the power of changing a media narrative cannot be underestimated. So we need to be more savvy. You've got the energy there at the board. We also need the funds. Our staff are incredibly dedicated. We need everybody also online in a managed way to chip in with how they say we can be more effective. So perhaps a dedicated portal as well as regular surgeries and us being approachable as HOs too. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for that. I really appreciate you keeping to time, and I'm sorry about hovering into view, but it seems the least intrusive way of my doing that. We've had a lot of questions submitted to us. We have amalgamated questions, so some of you may have submitted questions and see them manifest themselves in a slightly different form to the way that they started. The first question I'd like to take is from Simon Rothstein. Simon, are you, I can see you, but are you in a position to unmute and ask the question that you posed? We'd like you to do that if you can.
Yes, I can. Hi, everyone. Thank you. My question is that progressive Judaism in some parts of the Jewish community is often seen or labelled as a secondary Judaism or an inferior Judaism or an easy Judaism. How would you go about countering that within the wider community?
Thank you so much, Simon. So the question was, in some parts of the community, progressive Judaism is sometimes seen as a lesser or secondary Judaism. How would you help to counter that perception? I'm going to go first to Adrian, I think.
Thank you. Well, I think the Board of Deputies does its bit to address these kind of issues, because for a long time, the board has been an exemplar of the pluralism of the community. So a great a great lot of store is taken in the fact that we have within the board a wide range of deputies from all different denominations. The one area which we struggle with is actually Haredi participation, and if you go back, without delving too much into the history of the board, a decision was made in 1972 to expand to expand the role of consultation with the rabbinate of the progressive denominations, which is obviously the right thing to do. But there was, as a consequence, the board lost the participation of the Orthodox Union, which is the main Haredi body, and nevertheless, the board has, in an ad hoc way, managed to find ways of working with the strictly Orthodox community. But I think that that's something that the board should always hold dear, that we have the participation of everybody from the denomination so far as we're able to. If people don't want to be members of the board, that's obviously that's their decision. Personally, I believe in fostering interdenominational cooperation. And Andrew and I, through London Jewish Forum, have done an enormous amount of work. And I found that, as is often the case, including actually, if you step away from the Jewish community per se, but into community, interfaith, often the best way of building relations is to actually find things in common to work on. So, we often find ourselves in a meeting, say, with Transport for London or with the police or on public health, where we have people from both the Haredi and across the denominations, both modern Orthodox centrist, if you want, to progressive. And I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. So the question is about progressive Judaism being seen as a lesser or a secondary Judaism, and how would you help change that perception? Andrew.
It's interesting. When I first was on the board many years ago, it was very much a Reform Orthodox divide on the board. And I can remember being told off for wearing a kippah at board meetings by a senior person in the board as a Reform. I can remember being hissed when Vice Chair of Reform Judaism, when I said in this week's parasha we read, and it was a very unpleasant place far, far too often. I don't think that's true of the board anymore at all. If the divide's anywhere, unfortunately it's around Israel, and that's a very different thing that goes on. However, I do want to believe that we should have much more connection. So the thing that caused the divide to start with was consultation with the chairs of the Assembly and the Council, and it doesn't happen. There has to be no such consultation. So one questions, what does it all mean, and why does that divide exist? I believe that whether it comes from I don't know that we shouldn't be looking to necessarily change the constitution, but what we should be looking is to make things real and create real relations with different rabbis. The pandemic changed everything. The pandemic suddenly meant that we could have. I was told by Orthodox Rabbonim, strictly Orthodox Rabbonim, that it wasn't halakhic space. And therefore, they were really happy. They could be on the same screen and we could have Charlie Baginski and Sromi Sinitsky from the Union on the same screen, and they would be, and it was wonderful and changed everything. Also, during the pandemic, Rabbi Charlie will tell us that she was consulted properly by government, and we need to go back to a stage where that consultation continues. The board mustn't let just the chief rabbi or just any particular rabbi be the representative of the community. It's vital we show that we're all at the table.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Denise.
Simon and everyone, thank you for that question. The fact that there is this view, I find offensive as a Jew, reaching out to a fellow Jew. I have family members and friends, including Rabbonim, across the liberal and progressive and reform Judaism movements. They are as valid, they are not secondary, and they're not inferior. I'm not a male Orthodox rabbi or a male Orthodox synagogue member who is constrained from going into a synagogue and worshipping in any synagogue. And I say that openly. So I'm inclusive, and I also know that the reform movement, for example, has great academics and a history in Germany and an intellectual reach and capacity, as does Masorti Judaism, as does liberal Judaism, and progressive Judaism. I don't like divisionism. Hitler didn't distinguish. Our enemies don't distinguish. And any Jew, whether they are matrilineal or patrilineal, should be welcome within our community and should be on the Board of Deputies, which represents us all and all our strands. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And last, Owen. So the question was a while ago. It was about progressive Judaism being seen as in some way secondary, and how would you change the perception?
I was expecting this question and obviously had to have a quick think how I would respond, because I'm a liberal Jew, and I can say hand on heart that over many, many years, I've never actually felt any member from any of the other denominations sort of looked on me as being in some way inferior. They may not have liked me personally for being stroppy, opinionated or whatever, but I never felt that I was thought the less of. Now, I particularly love being a deputy, because there we are all working together on similar projects from every aspect of Judaism, whatever brand or flavour. Now, as you could imagine, when I'm working promoting disability inclusion, denomination really doesn't come into it for me. My concern is what people are actually doing. And I can say that I cannot really say that any one particular group is less favourable to disability inclusion. But I will add, at the risk of being chased up St. John's Wood Road by Charlie, my fear is, though, just occasionally, progressives can be a little bit complacent on disability awareness because they sort of feel, oh, of course we're inclusive. Whereas I think perhaps more of the other denominations are less sure and are more aware that there's a great deal of work to be done. But I most certainly can say hand on heart that liberal Judaism isn't been less favoured.
I'm loving what you say, but I have to be impartial. Thank you so much, Owen. Jeremy, please.
Thank you very much. It's a good question, Simon, because I think people have commented on progressive Judaism, etc., in the board, but really the question was about how do we show externally to the wider community that all forms of Judaism have their place, and the answer is that clearly it depends on what issues we're dealing with, and if somebody from progressive Judaism, whether it's Masorti, whether it's Reform or Liberal, has the expertise and knowledge, then surely that person is the one who should be on screen, so to speak. That person should be the one that we put forward as a spokesman on that particular issue. Shouldn't be in other words, it shouldn't be an issue. And certainly, I've only been on the board since 2015, but I haven't noticed, certainly at plenary meetings before the pandemic changed everything, I didn't notice that there was an issue with the way people spoke to each other, from different denominations. I found it was all very, very inclusive, which is of course what it should be, because the board is an advocacy body that advocates for all sections of Anglo jury. Anglo jury, British jury. All sections of British jury. So in that sense, I don't see an issue, certainly within the board. And externally, it's just a case of whoever is the best person to speak on that issue, from wherever they come from, is the one that the board should be putting forward.
Thank you all very much, and thank you so much for that question, Simon. Next, I'm going to take a question from the hall. Harriet, you had a question. And then we'll take you, Jerry.
Welcome. Really good to have you all here. Thank you for coming. Yes, my question won't take you by surprise particularly. I wondered what efforts the board should be making towards interfaith work.
So the question is about what the board should be doing in respect of interfaith work. I'm going to go to you first, Denise.
Well, the interfaith work does sit within the board's remit, and the board should engage with interfaith work, particularly at this time. And I think that there should be even more visibility, because if we can have pathways to understanding, respect and tolerance, it should be there. Locally, I know that LJS is exemplary in terms of its local connections with Regent's Park Mosque, and my synagogue, South Hampstead Synagogue, also engages in similar interfaith work. I think that the board needs to do more across and look at strategic alliances, as well as genuine dialogue and understanding with councils for Christians and Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, Baha'is, Muslims who are with us, and Nisha Nissim. And Mitzvah Day is a wonderful event. And local, just having not only the communal or organisational dialect, but each individual deputy being an ambassador and being proud to be Jewish, and having the conversations as well helps on the ground as well. I hope that helps you. And should I be Vice President, I would welcome all suggestions and want to work collaboratively with other faith organisations as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. I've had a request to identify this speaker. The person asking the question was Harriet Goldenberg, one of the deputies for the Liberal Jewish Synagogue. I'm going to ask Jeremy next.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Harriet, for that question. Basically, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody will correct me, I think the interfaith sits within the Defence Division, and personally, I think it should be within the Communities and Education Division. There's no question that interfaith is important. We need to go into it with our eyes open. I've sometimes listened to, I've been to interfaith meetings where you see the same people, and you don't get the rank and file. That's particularly the case in Manchester, I'm afraid, with certain sections of the Muslim community. You know, we see one or two of the leaders, but we don't see the rank and file. And I had some bitter experiences at Manchester Jewish Museum about that when I was education officer. So I think, we really need to move beyond the sugar candy phase and actually walk into this with our eyes open and actually be prepared to talk respectfully and accept the differences that there will be on issues that may divide us. Clearly, it's a lot easier with other groups like Sikhs, Hindus, Baha'i, etc., and many Christian groups as well. I've been to meetings recently with the Council of Christians and Jews. A friend of mine, David Arnold, is one of the vice presidents of the Manchester branch. And so, yes, I think the board does need to push this, but also has to be very wary of whom you're dealing with, because unfortunately we now live in quite difficult times, and we need to, as I said, just be aware of whom we're actually dealing with.
Thank you, Jeremy. Owen, interfaith.
Interfaith, obviously, is really, really important. And one of the things I'll just pick up what Nee said, Mitzvah Day is a really wonderful way to engage with different communities. And in fact, where I live in Salford, we use Mitzvah Day with using that sort of the logo, every day is Mitzvah Day, and try and engage with marginalised communities. But I would just like to say, I think one of the best resources that the Board of Deputies have is the JLLE. And I see this as a really brilliant opportunity to use the exhibition to engage with different religious groups. Just to give a quick example, I've booked it in to be held in Salford for a week. Now, it's going to be a little bit different from the way the board usually does it, which is to invite school children, etc., etc., and that's very important. But for this exhibition, we're basing it in a very, very busy community centre on a housing estate which has a diverse community of Sikhs, Hindus, you name it, they're all there. And we're inviting various groups to come along for coffee, cake, and just to see everyday, ordinary Jewish people there to chat. It's not about getting the big organisation, it's individuals. So interfaith, yes, we must develop it and keep going.
Thank you so much, Owen. Adrian.
Thank you very much. Next week, the Board of Deputies will be hosting an interfaith Seder at the home of the President, which is the second year running that it's going to be hosted. I've got quite a lot of personal experience, and I'm sure other people have here as well, of interfaith work. Amongst other things, I've been sitting on the Faith Forum for London for the last 15 years, and I sit on the advisory board of the LSE Faith Centre, and I've taken multi-faith groups to Israel and the Palestinian territories, and been involved in training and other work as well. And there's a lot of activity that's going on. The principal feeling at the moment is that relationships are very strained because of the circumstances. You know, in terms of sugar candy, or sugarcoating maybe is a better expression, we shouldn't sugarcoat the current situation. There's a lot of existing relationships which are under stress. Now, we had, on Tuesday morning, we had a meeting with the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and he was quite frank about the challenges, actually. Obviously, speaking as a Muslim, as a very high-profile Muslim, and someone who's had a lot of engagement with the Jewish community about the state of affairs, and we have to accept the fact that there are very different views and perspectives between or within communities. You know, also we mustn't make the mistake either, though, of thinking that things are homogeneous either. But nevertheless, there is a strain, and what we really need to do at the current time is to make sure that we preserve those relationships, because we're in this for the long haul, and we have to work hard at it. Now, the board can do, on the one hand, it can present an example like the Interfaith Seder. At the end of the day, it only involves a limited number of people, but it's there. You present it as an example. It's there to encourage. But the other thing we need to do is we need to do an audit of everyone in the board who's got interfaith experience, and we need to find ways to mobilise that and in order to push out into the local communities further relevant activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you all to turn off your mics, because apparently yours in particular, Adrian, was giving feedback. But this way seems to work for people because it's good in the hall. It just means me jumping up and down like a lunatic, but you're used to that anyway. Andrew.
Yeah, thanks. I
I love this question, Harriet, because I actually think it's the biggest challenge the board's got. And the reason I say it is because I think there's two areas of work. One is faith work and the other is interfaith work. Now, I don't spend a massive amount of time on interfaith work, but I spend day after day doing faith work, sitting with the Bishop of London and people from all different faiths talking about social prescribing from our community's perspective. I came in here tonight where we were talking about the future with Scotland Yard, about independent advisory groups with police, with all different faith groups on the same screen at the same time. We're doing this the whole time. Faiths have to stand up and understand that we have to talk for ourselves. We don't, multi-faith forums, something else. Interfaith is something else. Really important work, but the majority of the work the board does actually is about representing faith. And when you look at the rabbis here, much of what they do as well is representing faith. We have to be in all sorts of fora talking for our community. The pandemic showed it again and again. This wasn't a place for interfaith, it was a place for faith work. Now, some of that may be the split between what defence does and what communities do. And that's the thing that we have to tease out. It's a big challenge. It's very different, and I co-chair the London Jewish Health Partnership, co-chair the London Jewish Police Police Forum, and we've shown there we can sit together with people who we totally disagree with politically, but we can work together and share best practice in our communities and learn from each other, and really work together. Something very special about that.
Thank you so much. It's really great that you're all keeping to time because it is enabling me to ask more questions that our deputies wanted to ask. The next person I would like to go to, I can see that you're online, I hope you can hear me, is Rabbi Margaret Jacoby. It's great to have you with us, Rabbi Margaret. I hope that you will be able to turn on your mic and ask your question. You're most welcome.
Yes, thank you, Karen. It's Margaret Jacoby from Birmingham, and the question I'd like to ask is, how do you see the board interacting in the wider British civic space on issues not primarily directed at Jewish concerns, such as refugees and asylum seekers and the Rwanda policy?
Thank you so much, Rabbi Margaret. So the question is, how do you see the board interacting in the wider British civic space on issues not primarily directed at Jewish concerns, e.g. refugees, asylum seekers, Rwanda policy, etc.? I'm going to go first to Adrian.
Thank you very much. So the board has, in the board's manifesto, this is an area that's received coverage, and the approach of the board is one which takes into account the fact that we are a community which is of immigrant heritage, that we are here because in many cases we fled persecution, but also because of the harsh economic conditions as well, which nobody moves 1,000 miles out of choice. It's because the circumstances are such that they feel compelled to do so. I also spent some time in 2021 in northern Iraq, in Kurdistan, and that's one of the areas where many asylum seekers come from. And I actually I had the privilege of meeting someone from the village where, I don't know if you know, there was an unfortunate sinking of a boat that was coming over, and a woman who drowned from a village, and I met someone from that particular village. So it's something that it touches upon me tangibly. And I've also, I go to the 42 Society dinner, and I remember in the film that was shown as part of the evening's proceedings was a picture of a dinghy with refugees. Now, it's a very hot political issue, there's no doubt about that. And I think that most people accept the fact you have to have immigration controls as well. And the government's approach to this with the Rwanda proposal is particularly controversial. So I think that where we're in that situation, I think the board isn't in a position where it can directly take a position on legislation, but what it can do is articulate concerns around values. That's what we can do. So we can talk about the values of the importance of human life. We can talk about the importance of social cohesion, which is one of the flip sides to all of this. How do you integrate people? And we know in the current situations there are great concerns about the erosion of social cohesion. And we can also raise sensitivities around international law. But we do have to tread carefully because, rightly, we have to have a working relationship with the government, of whatever political persuasion or complexion. So we have to take that account, and we have to calibrate how we speak and what we say and the medium we use for that to ensure that we can maintain our relations as best as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Before I go to you, Denise, which I'm going to do, I'd like to say hi to Marie van der Zil, board president, who's just joined us. It's great to have you with us.
Rabbi, I think that the board definitely has a role within the wider civics space, because our religion, tradition and values, which include the pursuit of justice and access to justice for refugees and asylum seekers, the oppressed, those that are vulnerable, those that are mentally ill, those that are disabled, and also to promote social cohesion, diversity, and those who are really worried about the cost of living crisis and increasing polarisation within society. So the board has a role with all of that. I'm very conscious from my own perspective that I've been active in those issues. I'm a nationally elected council member of the Law Society of England and Wales. I've spoken in the national and international media on those issues. I've acted for the most vulnerable refugees in family matters and worked with immigration lawyers as well. The challenge for the board is that when we have called it out, and we've called out other issues such as respecting slavery issues and heritage issues and diversity issues, we have been dealing with a government that has not wanted to hear us. We may have a change of government, or we're certainly going to have a change of government, and they may be more receptive to us. But we also need to focus on our core priorities in relation to our own community as well as interfacing in the civic space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denise. Jeremy.
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Rabbi Jacobi. No, I'm actually very, very similar in my outlook to Adrian, that we have to be careful. I mean, obviously our core work is advocating for the Jewish community. Clearly, we have a history. I mean, my grandparents escaped poverty and persecution in Eastern Europe. My grandmother was from Poland. Her family were from Poland. My grandfather's family on my father's side were from Latvia. But the thing is, they didn't go from one country to another demanding that they be allowed into a certain country. I think things are different, and I think sometimes we forget that. The 937 people who left Hamburg on the SS St. Louis and the Voyage of the Damned would not have turned round had they been offered asylum before they came back to Europe. They wouldn't have said, "Oh no, we want to go somewhere else." They would have taken any asylum gladly. So I think there are differences, and I think sometimes we forget that. So I think that, yes, I think we should point out to government there are certain general issues in terms of human values, and particularly how our faith affects those human values. Andrew mentioned, for example, B'Tselem Elokim, all people are made in the image of God. So, clearly that is the case, but I think we do have to be careful the way we do it, and we shouldn't take our eyes off the ball in terms of our core work. So it's a case of fitting that in. It's a case of doing it in a way that will get noticed by the government but not destroy our relations with the government, whether it's Labour, Conservative or whatever. And that's the way I feel about it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Andrew, please.
Yeah. Rabbi Jacobi, thank you so much, Margaret, for your question, because actually I think it's rabbis that have got a big role here. And the board can actually, these are prophetic voices in our community, and I think the board doesn't have to do all the speaking itself. And I think whether it be the chief rabbi, whether it be the leaders of our own community, and I look particularly at Rabbi Baginski, Rabbi Levy, and all the leaders of all the movements are wonderful speaking around Pirkei Avot and all these texts that talk about the refugee. And I think that sometimes they're the better people who can sit out front, and the board, should get behind our rabbis on some things and actually let them do the talking on issues which I think are textual often, and I think are put much more strongly and much more succinctly by our Rabbonim.
Thank you for that succinct answer, Andrew. Owen, it's on the biggest civic space.
The issue of refugees and asylum seekers really is desperately worrying, particularly now because of politicians deliberately stirring up fears where I live in the north to make people feel that there's something they're losing out because so many of the resources are going to support asylum seekers. So it's vitally important that the Board of Deputies and indeed all our communities stand up for refugees and asylum seekers. And I think that we do. I think we've got a marvellous record and we've a lot to be proud of. But I think with the general election coming up, this is really going to be an issue and we must stand up and speak out for refugees. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. It's just gone 7:30. We started a little late. I do want to give all of our candidates 1 minute to sum up. I did promise you, Jerry, that you could ask a question. Is it quick? Good, then I'll keep my word.
It is very quick. Jerry Lewis, I'm sorry for a googly question. However, what experience, what divisions have you served in the board? What experience have you got? And number two part of that, what on the 13th of May division would you ask or want to be associated with, and what would be your priority? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. So, as I understand it, the question is, what experience are you bringing, and which division would you like to make your contribution to the board? Those are the two questions. Andrew.
Jerry, thanks. I could actually believe that I could have a crack at any division, and I've just joined the executive of Global Jury, which is a very important new organisation, and the work I've done in international past on the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency and involved in the joint, and I think I've got a lot to bring in some Soviet Jury. I don't want to particularly do that. I've been on the Communities Division since goodness knows when. I've been Vice Chair for the last 6 years. I've done a pretty good job there. But with all the work I've been doing on police and health and on society and particularly even on transport, I think that there are things that I'd like to focus on the Defence Division, and I think I actually probably will bring most to that division. But it's not my choice, it will be the choice of whoever's elected president.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Owen, so the question is, what experience are you bringing, and if you could choose a division, which one would you choose?
A very, very long experience on living with disability, but also with working in the voluntary sector on community development. The division, I think, would be communities and education, but I'm open.
Thank you so much. Jeremy.
Thank you. Thanks, Jerry, for that. My experience, certainly on the board, is communities and education. My life's work has been in education, and I suppose that would be my first choice, because I would want to push, continue to push, to develop the teaching of Judaism in non-Jewish schools as one way of breaking down the barriers of mutual incomprehension and misunderstanding that can fuel anti-Semitism and racism generally. So that's the obvious thing. And also working with regional communities. I think we've made a start on that with Sarah Radovan's appointment, and I'd like to see that continue. Having said that, I'm something of a geek. I started reading history when I was about 9 years old. By the time I was 13, I read Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, and my children were absolutely appalled when I told them that at that age I knew the names and dates of all the Roman emperors. They said, "Daddy, didn't you have anything better to do with your life?" The point is that with that love of history came an interest in current affairs. And so I could easily sit on the international division and defence as well, quite happily. But clearly, I suppose, the best use of my expertise would be communities and education.
Thank you, Jeremy. Great question, Jerry. Thank you so much. Denise?
My experience on the divisions was initially on the Communities and Education division, and latterly, for many years, on the Defence division. The logical progression would be, should I be privileged to be elected Vice President, is to chair the Defence division. However, I also have a particular interest in the international division. I have friends across Europe and family beyond, and who are Jewish, and I'm very interested in the international perspective, and my work does and has had an international element to it. I also am a traveller as well. So I say this, it's a very good question, so that the president's president-to-be will know my declared interest, but it's up to them as well. And I would be happy, I want to work to serve the board, but I think my talents are best suited to those two divisions. Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and thank you again, Jeremy. Adrian. I'm trying to split it up, and then, sorry, my apologies to you, Adrian.
Not at all. So I've spent 3.5 triennia sitting on the F&O, the Finance and Organisation division, and that's the one division that I won't be able to sit on. Although what I would say is all of us, who was elected, will have a very close interest in, obviously, the finances and organisation side of the board. So it kind of cuts across. It's the engine room, if you want, of the board. As Andrew says, it's not up to us at the end of the day, it's up to the President. But I would be interested in the international division, and the reason for that is because I spent many years leading the stakeholder engagement meetings with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, both with the board and the Jewish Leadership Council and B'nai B'rith and other organisations. So I've got plenty of experience of dealing with the Middle East desk at the Foreign Commonwealth Office, or the FCDO now, and so that's one thing. Professionally, also, I've worked extensively in the Gulf, and I've worked for various governments in the Gulf, and as well as Israel, and I've also worked extensively professionally in Eastern Europe, and particularly Ukraine, and I've also been over the years to a number of World Jewish Congress meetings and other meetings as well. So I have a sense for the international framework and for the challenges there. But like everyone else here, I do have experience in defence and communities, and I'd be very happy to be put wherever I am guided by the President. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, and my apologies to you once again. We are now running a little over time, so I'm going to ask all the presidential candidates if you could just nod your indulgence for me to give our candidates here 1 minute to sum up. Is that all right? Yeah? Thank you all very much. So I'm going to go to Jeremy first and ask you to take 1 minute, starting now, on why these guys should vote for you.
Why should you vote for me? Well, basically because I feel that as a person who was expelled from school at the age of 5 because they couldn't cope with my visual disability, and I've basically overcome every obstacle that was put in my path. At the age of 16, I became the first guy from the John Eyre School for the Partially Sighted to go on to further and then higher education. So I was something of a trailblazer. I never let anything get in my way. Every obstacle that's been put in my way, I've knocked down and gone through. And people who know me know that I'm an extremely hard worker, very thorough, and I feel that I would, hopefully, if I'm privileged to be elected, hopefully I would do justice to representing and serving British Jewry.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Adrian.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you to the organisers this evening. The second thing is, I think it's been very enjoyable and stimulating, and actually one of the great things about Hustings is that you learn a lot from your fellow candidates as well. So thank you all of you for that. These are, as I said in my opening speech, these are unprecedented times for our community. There's much anxiety and worry, but there's also a sense of determination too. And we need seasoned and experienced honorary officers to help guide the board through choppy waters. I think my many years at the London Jewish Forum, Labour Friends of Israel and various other senior roles within the community and professionally have equipped me for the role. But more than that, the board is a collective endeavour. It's a point I made in my opening speech. All of the deputies play a vital role, and they should all have a sense of personal and collective or common ownership. And we can only achieve this through meaningful consultation and active engagement. And I hope I can do my bit in that respect. Let's both celebrate our diversity and also on the great deal that we have in common within the community and beyond. Let's all work with the best of intentions for the betterment of our community and for wider society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do feel very bad hurrying you, but it's the only way that we can do this. Owen, 1 minute on why people should vote for you.
Let's do the Board of Deputies proud by bringing diversity and inclusion centre stage in the next triennium, and let's lead by example. Support diversity, inclusion. Thank you.
Wow, short is sweet, less is more. Adrian, yes? No, it's Denise. No, sorry. Denise, sorry. I had all the names in my head at different moments. Denise, the floor is yours, 1 minute.
I would ask you to vote for me because gender equality, inclusion and diversity, and having a woman in role with an acute ability to speak to those issues is essential so the board is represented. I'm an experienced deputy of 30 years standing. I'm a respected lawyer. I have the personal skill set and the ability to be agile, to be inclusive, to be collaborative, to welcome and engage not only with every single deputy and want to maximise their strength, but to promote emerging deputies and look to a bright future with positivity and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. Andrew, your final minute.
Yeah, thanks. I think we should all be elected. I mean, that's the easy one. Yeah. But and you're all wonderful. I've had the experience of working cross-communally in terms of running Limud for many years, both here and internationally, of in the UGIA, being the chair of the UK programme for 10 years, and also working specifically as the chair of the Reform Movement. I've been involved with one of the, not only when the board was supporting it, one of the founders of the JLC in those days, and I've had a very wide cross-communal experience and a specific experience, and I think I can bring that to the table, and I've also been on the board for many decades. So I look forward to this. I think the time is right for me, and that's why I'm hoping you'll vote for me now.
Thank you all so very much for your discipline, for answering the questions in such a generous spirit. Thank you all online being there. Please stay online. We're hoping to do the switch over to the presidential debate in as short a time as we can. But meanwhile, to Andrew, to Jeremy, to Adrian, to Denise, and to Owen, thank you so very much.
No, that's not right, is it?
Yeah, place you want us to go. Designate seat. How are you? After that. Great, thank you. Well done. You did very well.
One, two. This is not working.
Have you got one of these? Do you want me to take this off?
You're running around like bloody Jack in the Box. It seems that this works better. Are you all right with that? It's fine, great. Okay.
I'm worried about every time you walk backwards. We get very near that edge of that step.
So far, I'm lucky. Let's hope. I'll be mindful of it. Thank you. Okay. Are you doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah. So I'm going at the order, but alphabetical order, bowing into your keep first, and then cycling round.
I don't like to cycle too quickly. I prefer to.
Okay. As you.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tea and coffee at the back has gone.
Oh God, is it? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Good. Whew, I don't know if people have disappeared or.
Sort of comfort break, is it almost?
Yeah.
How many people have you got?
I don't know.
Does it work?
Should we start? Another 2 or 3 minutes?
You must start.
You must.
It's 10 to. We're late.
Right, okay. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for not going away, and thank you, our presidential candidates, for kindly agreeing that we have the VP debate first because of logistical issues affecting 2 of our candidates, and I apologise for starting this debate late. It seemed the right thing to do at the time to take the questions that we have. So we're going to go for the same format. We're going to give each of you 2 minutes. And then we're going to take questions, combination of questions that have been asked, questions from people on Zoom, and questions from people in the room. Sheila, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and as you can see, and I've been quite brutal about time, but I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and it starts sometime round about now.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. I want to tell you a story. Sorry? Oh, my name is Sheila Giewolf. And I'm from Cardiff United Synagogue, and I'm standing for President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. And this is the story I want to tell you. I have been vice president, senior vice president, and I now run the board's Outreach Education Working Group. For over 40 years, I have been going round the country speaking to non-Jewish school children about what it means to be Jewish, to help fight the myths and misconceptions that can lead to Jewish race hate. I was recently in Hockley in East Essex. I was leading an assembly of 400 children talking about Jewish values and beliefs. At the end of the session, one little boy came up to me. "Hello, miss. My name's Daniel. My teacher says I can tell you I'm a quarter Jewish." "Oh, wow, Daniel. Which quarter is that?" "My mum and my grandma." "Daniel, that is amazing. How does that make you feel?" "Very proud, miss. But I have to tell you, when we go to London, my mum says I mustn't tell people I'm Jewish because there will be trouble." I could have cried. "Don't worry, Daniel. This won't always be like this, you know. Keep being proud to be Jewish and things will pass." "Yes, miss, I will." And he walked with his head held high. This cannot go on. We need to do more. The current leadership has not done enough of the board. We need to shout out to defend and protect our community. If I was elected president, I would have 3 priorities. We need to call out the lies and the biased reporting we see each and every day on the TV screens and reading in our newspapers. We need to shout louder than our enemies. What are we afraid of? Who are we afraid of? It has to stop. Secondly, we need to educate about being Jewish in the UK and about Israel. And thirdly, we have amazing deputies, 300 all over the UK, in the regions and London, with skills and experience that we can draw on to pull together to help fight this terrible thing that we're frightened of. Fear is the most awful weapon. We need to be loud and proud about who we are to be Jewish in the UK today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shia. I'm sorry to do this to you. It's the only way I can run through things. Philip, please tell everybody who you are and why they should vote for you, or anything else you want to do with the next 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you very much, Karen. I'm Phil Rosenberg, and it's great to be back at the LJS. I was here a couple of weeks ago and was really welcomed over Shabbat, and it's great to see Harriet and Jonathan, and thank you to Karen and Karen, who welcomed me from afar as well. One of the things that strikes me about this community, it's a pretty A-list community. You get Keir Starmer, you get members of the Beatles, you get Supreme Court justices. But the thing is, this community wears that lightly, and the thing that most strikes me about this community is that it's inclusive. And if I may say something a bit personal, my wife Frances is here, and when we were exploring our journey into Judaism, it was here that we came for the evening classes, and we discovered a Judaism that was inclusive and welcoming and warm, and we wouldn't be here today without that, so I want to thank this community for that. Now, as a community, we're facing an unprecedented challenge. The war, of course, between Israel and Hamas, and a massive rise in anti-Semitism. I'm a campaigner who will fight anti-Semitism. I have the connections across politics, the media, faith and diplomacy to make our case at the highest levels and to stand up for Israel's peace and security. But at the same time, what's really important is that we don't give way to defining ourselves by the negatives. We need to be out loud and proud as British Jews, and we need to reach out to our neighbours and friends of different communities as well. Inclusion is absolutely essential to my platform. I was really proud to instigate the Commission on Racial Inclusivity in the Jewish community, and if elected president, I will launch a commission on disability inclusion in the Jewish community as well. Absolutely crucial to what the board can do is to use our 300 deputies and 200 institutions far better. I was very proud to propose the Adopt a Hostage scheme, which this community and others have adopted, which shows what we can do when we coordinate centrally but deliver locally. That is the impact that we can seek to deliver. So my pitch to you is, if you want a presidency that's energized, empowering and inclusive, vote for me on the 12th of May. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. Amanda, you're going to take the mic and I was going to give it to you. The next 2 minutes are yours.
Good evening, I'm Amanda Bowman and I'm standing for President. Over the last 6 years as your Vice President, I've been honoured to serve you, earning your trust, upholding your values and securing the welfare of our community. Now I offer you a vision of a better board, a vision of a stronger, more unified community. We'll celebrate and support our rich diversity and heritage, and our Board of Deputies will not only respond to immediate threats head-on, but will empower both deputies and communities to shape a vibrant Jewish life in the UK. As your President, I'll continue to protect the freedoms, rights and securities of British Jews at a time when the risks to social cohesion are so great, and when events in Israel and Gaza feed polarisation and hate on our streets here in the UK. While the temptation might be to hunker down, I want us to look outwards, beyond our community, to be active allies and build bridges across faith groups, across our communal organisations, and of course across all our deputies, young and old, left and right, of all denominations, across our nations, to deliver our work strategically in a spirit of openness, transparency, and respect. But that's not all. My presidency will be marked by inclusivity and empowerment. I'll create a space where every deputy has a voice, where diverse opinions are respected and where collaboration thrives. Every deputy will have the chance to tell us what they bring to the board, what they care about, and how they want to be involved. And as I've engaged deputies in everything I've done up till now, I'll continue to do so. When it comes to leadership, I firmly believe in the strength of collaboration. Each of us brings unique perspectives to the table. Our diversity will become our strength. Israel is at the front of our minds right now. As we move towards Pesach and our celebration of freedom, may we all pray that a pathway to peace can be found in Israel and Gaza and that the hostages will be all returned home. Thank you.
Rabbanim, deputies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Karen and Tony. I'm Michael Ziv. I'm currently the treasurer of the Board of Deputies, and I'm originally from Leeds, so I am the regional representation here. We are in the fight of our lives, a fight to ensure British Jews can continue to live without fear in this country. But more than that, a fight to ensure we can continue to flourish, contribute, and play our full part in society. The frightening rise of anti-Semitism must be beaten. But let's remember the other fight, the cost of living crisis, which has hit our community hard. Our wonderful charities struggle to raise funds, leaving families desperate. We must win the fight against poverty. The board needs now outstanding, experienced, real leadership. The listening, embracing, and involving kind of leadership. We must continue to promote Jewish life, defend the legitimacy of Israel, advocate for religious practices and communal support. In the last year, I visited over 200 shuls across the communal spectrum, including liberal, Masorti, progressive and reform shuls, and they made me very welcome. And I listened to a myriad of opinions. In leading the board, I will continue to listen and represent your robust views. I want to involve, empower and harness the skills of the 300 outstanding deputies, particularly in 3 crucial areas: the President's Advisory Group, the Cobra Crisis Planning Group, so our community will never again be caught unprepared, and the Media Response Team, ensuring the most highly trained spokespeople represent us. These groups will be formed from deputies with a range of views, and in particular, including younger members. We need to build the next generation of leaders for our community. So With your support, I will lead a team which harnesses the energy of our board, defends our right to live peacefully, and pushes back against the worrying levels of Jew hatred. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I'm going to ask you the first question, the same as I asked the Vice President, so you've heard this one before. It's, what do you think are the most pressing challenges facing the board at this time? And what ideas do you have for addressing them effectively? And I'm going to go first to you, Phil.
Well, thank you very much, Karen. Look, I addressed some of this in what I said, but obviously the massive rise in anti-Semitism and the fight for Israel's peace and security remain topmost in our minds. And doing that in a way that doesn't forget our values and the fact that we can be out, proud, loud, and to build bridges across communities. I think that there's a huge opportunity, though, and I think this is the reason I'm very excited about the Board of Deputies. We're an organisation with 200 member institutions, 300 deputies, and if we can begin to decentralise our activism, we can begin to punch way above our weight. As a community, we always need to punch above our weight, now more than ever, and if we can create a platform where the board is a sort of hub and spoke model, where the board acts and then 300 deputies act around the country to follow that, that's a game changer, and that's what I'm really excited about, and I believe that if we do that, we can meet these challenges head on. Thank you.
Thank you. That's super. So challenges facing the board and ideas for addressing them. Michael.
So, again, anti-Semitism, as far as I'm concerned, is the largest single problem and challenge that we've got. I have a team of people that will work together to try and work to educate people, invest in this whole area. We need to raise funds to make sure that we are ready to move ahead and to move quickly. And I believe that we need to start to move now for that. So anti-Semitism involving our deputies is a really important area to start with the most. Followed by that, there's poverty, which I just spoke about. Again, it's important that we start to get people involved and we start to work with the community, particularly the charities that are involved in the poverty, and to try and get our deputies working with us on that. And finally, two other areas that I think are very important. That is young people, the establishment and the development of our young people for the future of the community. Those are our future. And alongside that, the work that we need to do at the universities. Our young people in the universities are deeply under pressure, and we need to make sure that we're there up front to go and protect them and look after them. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to give the floor next to you, Sheila. So it's on challenges and your ideas for addressing them.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for this evening. Okay, like everybody else, fighting anti-Semitism. You know, we need to be able to be safe to walk on the streets, not to be frightened. We need to work with other organisations. It's not a competition. We're all Jews. We're all in this together. We need to talk to each other. The JLC have come up with this plan. We need to look at working with other organisations. Again, funding. Michael, you mentioned funding. Absolutely. But so many people out there. Somebody came to me and said, my daughter doesn't know who the deputy is in her synagogue. It's terrible. We need to get out. We need to have a program. It's in my manifesto, which will be going out soon. We need to have a program of honorary officers and vice chairs, a proactive program, not waiting to be asked to go on a Shabbat, to go to synagogues, especially those who don't even belong to the board yet, and those who do, who are not paying their full contribution. We need to negotiate. We need to get the money in. We need to be fully resourced, and fighting anti-Semitism is definitely a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you're not going to hear much argument from me. I think I would agree with the priorities of the three have gone before. So it's the danger of being the last in the line. What we haven't talked about is the demonization and delegitimization of Israel and how that's feeding the anti-Semitism that we're facing here. That is one of the greatest challenges that we're seeing, and along with anti-Semitism, we need to look at those two things hand in hand. The delegitimization of Israel and the hate marches that we've been seeing every other weekend in London is one demonstration about the risk that we have to social cohesion and community cohesion. And when we talk about community cohesion, we generally talk about it as something that goes on in society. But I think for the board, one of the challenges we have is to make sure that we're building community cohesion within our own Jewish community. We need to celebrate the diversity of perspectives and views within the community and channel those together towards a cohesive purpose. And as others have said, we also need to have cohesion between our organisations. We don't have to agree on everything, but we need to coordinate so that we're facing in the same direction and not being as polarised as we are and not doing each other harm as we try to all tackle the issues that we're facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if Simon Rothstein is still there, but we had a really good debate from the vice presidential candidates on this question, so I feel that it should be posed to you as well. So can I ask you all, in some parts of the community, progressive Judaism is sometimes seen as a lesser or secondary Judaism. How would you help to change or challenge that perception? Michael.
Thank you very much for that question. I believe that it is very important, as I've seen, respect amongst the community. I noticed when I came to the Progressive Liberal Reform Masorti shuls how well they treated me when I came here. And I hope that when those members come to other shuls, the people are treated equally. We are all Jews, and we all need to treat ourselves with respect and correctly and properly. Now, moving on from that, one of the things that I have done is organize something called the Fun Run. It's part of Maccabi, and it has been a run which is about cross-community. It's about making sure every organization in the community, every part of the religion is involved. And we have seen many times post-COVID and pre-COVID, when we've had 7,500 people there, the length and breadth of the community there. And it's been really important and seen how well that everybody can work together. So I think there's more of that sort of work that needs to be done and bringing people together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. So progressive Judaism, secondary, how would you help change the perception? Amanda.
Thank you. Well, sitting here, 4 candidates, we all come from the Orthodox tradition, and so it feels a bit strange me telling you how I feel about progressive Jewry and how for me there is no hierarchy in religiosity. How can there be? We're all Jews, and how one practices it is everybody's individual choice. But there are some practical ways that we can address that. Now, over the last 6 years, as your Vice President for Defence, when we've been looking at religious freedoms, often the attacks on religious freedoms are seen by the more orthodox denominations first. However, having said that, we always and always would do consult right across our community, so we're getting the perspectives of all in the community. Now, often what we've done in the past is we've taken a consensus view, and that has often meant that we've taken a more traditional Orthodox view. I think there's an opportunity as we go forward to say there are different perspectives within our community. And this is what works for one part of our community, and this is what works for another part of the community. Now, when I was talking with Rabbi Levy and Rabbi Baginski, one of the things they pointed out to me was something that had been felt and that I wasn't aware of, which is often we say, we hear people say, we've consulted with the Jewish community, we spoke to the chief rabbi. And I will call out that fact that you are not talking to the breadth of the Jewish community if you're only talking to the chief rabbi who doesn't represent the whole diversity of British Jewry. And I will also make sure that as we're consulting, that I will regularly meet with every chief of the denominations so that we can get that diversity of view into our thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, Phil, please.
One of the things I most love about the Board of Deputies is its pluralism. I always think when I look at the plenary, how lovely and wonderful it is when siblings sit together. And I think that's something that's really important to treasure and to promote. I mean, central to my vision is the fact that the 300 deputies, regardless of denomination, will be all working together for the good of the community. Beyond that, a few other thoughts. First of all, the Stanmore Accords, which have not really been used. It's important that we start getting the leadership of the denominations at a rabbinic and lay level together to discuss the issues, sometimes privately, but importantly that we do that. The board has not done that as much as it could have done in recent years, and I think it could do that a fair bit more. The other thing I think is that, and the board's been a bit patchy on this, we should be inviting the rabbinic leaders to address the plenaries. It would be fantastic. We've got the dynamic duo of Rabbi Levy and Rabbi Baginski here. I don't know whether you want to address them together or individually. Either is great, but making sure that we're giving a firm platform to all of the denominations that make up this magical tapestry of the community we have. One thing I think is important to say is this, and I'm going to say it on Israel. I don't intend, if elected president, to have a running commentary on Israel. But one issue that I feel is particularly important is inclusion of Jews of all different denominations in the Zionist project. And you can hear it from me here that if there's any challenge to the rights of progressive Jews in Israel, I will, as a proud Orthodox Zionist Jew, stand up for progressive Jews, because I think that the idea that we would tell Jews that they have no place in the Israel story, discriminate in that way is unacceptable. And I think we've got to lead from the front and say that's not right. And I will do that.
I agree with everything that's been said so far, but I want to add something now. So when we take the Jewish Living Experience exhibition that Owen alluded to earlier around the country, we make all non-Jewish children understand that it's not all about Orthodox or Orthodox traditional Judaism. We make a point of explaining about the diversity, about how in my synagogue we do this, and in my friend's synagogue. I was in Crystal Palace this morning with an ex-deputy, Shelley Salter, who goes to a liberal synagogue, and we were both able to explain the difference about how we practice our religion, so people understand there is a broad diversity within Judaism. So we're back to education again. The board is a broad church, if you excuse the expression. I agree with everything we've said. We need to be more inclusive. We need to consult. Nobody points a finger and says, you're not as good a Jew as I am, because, hey, we're all Jews. And as somebody said, Hitler made no distinction. But education, it comes back again for the general community to understand that we are not all the same and we should all be respected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amongst the progressive coalition that we have of Reform and Liberal, we also work with Masorti synagogues, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you, Tony Leifer, to this space. You have a question, I believe. Hopefully it's handy. Yeah, you do.
You do, yes. But actually, yes.
I do need the microphone, it turns out. I had a question prepared, and as I've listened to you, I've, on the one hand, been very impressed.
Everybody's been really good about not giving speeches. It's the question.
Everyone's been what?
Really good about not giving speeches.
It's a question.
Yes.
There is a question here. In fact, we've wasted time listening to me as to whether or not there's a question. So my question briefly is, we're in a time of a different form of time that we've experienced in the past, brand new serious issues. Where should the principal thrust of the board be now?
Okay, so the question that I was hoping that you were going to be asked is, Where is it now? I do have it somewhere. Yes. How will you craft the board's policy on Israel to ensure that it reflects the interests and diversified views of British Jews and does not regard itself as the mouthpiece of the Israeli government? Yes, I can. How will you craft the board's policy on Israel to ensure that it reflects the interests and diversified views of British Jews and does not regard itself as the mouthpiece of the Israeli government? Obviously, you're free to answer Tony's more general priority question, which I think you mentioned anyway in your opening statements, if you so wish. I'd like to ask you the question first, Amanda. So it's Israel and getting the balance right between diversity and the Israeli government's mouthpiece issue.
Well, we've been very lucky at the board in that over the time that I've been a vice president, we've had 2 substantial debates on Israel, and one on the two-state solution and one on deputies' views on the justice bill that was going through before the terrible attacks on the 7th of October. And it was really, really joyously pleased to see when we opened up that opportunity to deputies to contribute was the respect and the thoughtfulness that deputies had on the issue. And so I would use that opportunity more and more. So one of my strategies for going forward is to institute policy dialogue sessions for the board, for deputies, that would take place either at the end of a plenary meeting or between plenary meetings, so that we can bring in experts for briefings and provide capacity building for deputies, but also so that we can hear deputies' voices on the important elements of policy. And Israel would be one of the most important and probably the first issue that I would work on. By bringing in the voices of deputies and bringing in the experts from around our community and of course around the world on this issue, we'll be able to develop a policy that is unique for the board and doesn't and reflects the views of all deputies across the board.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Sheila, so the question on Israel and getting the balance right between diversity and mouthpiece of the Israeli government is you.
We need to be really careful here. We've tried to walk this road before, and it doesn't really work. You know, Israel government policy should be for people who can vote for the Israeli government policy, and we should remember we're the board of deputies of British Jews, and what goes on in Israel does affect us, but the work of the board is to protect and defend our community. Yes, we should have education about Israel. We've had a most amazing program over the last 3 years. Yes, we should have speakers and Zoom sessions so as we can defend when we have difficult conversations, when people are attacking Israel and deputies and other people want to know how to respond. But let's be really careful, you know. We're never going to get consensus. It's a fairy story. All we're going to do is upset some people and have leaked questions and bring disrepute possibly onto the board. Let's walk that road again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheila's sort of taken and stole my thunder there, Sheila, but that's all right. I agree that basically that we are the Board of Deputies of British Jews, number one, and therefore we are here to look after British Jews. And yes, the majority of British Jews support Israel, but we're here to look after the British Jews. That's the first part. The second part is, it is really important that we give an education to not only, because we represent British Jews, we have 300 people representing many communities and many organisations. And it's actually important that we get out to the communities. And it's not just London, we need to be nationally. And we're not London-centric only, and we need to find people, experts, who will go out and explain and talk to the communities, the smaller communities, smaller than Leeds and Manchester and London and Glasgow, Newcastle, places like that, Liverpool, Bristol, and get people to go to those places. That's one of the important things that I set out in my manifesto, and it's one of the things that I would see as very important, that education about Israel and getting them top-class speakers. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I, like most of the UK Jewish community, I'm a proud Zionist, and we, in the recent months, we've seen when Israel comes under attack, we feel it. And one of the things I think is that whilst there are debates, and actually we shouldn't be afraid of debates or diversity, that's actually the strength of the board and one of the strengths of our community, there are actually a lot of things that unite us. And I think that a broad view about Israel, where we pursue peace, security, prosperity, and equality, is a vision within which most, if not all, British Jews see themselves. And I think that we can do a lot more to bring ourselves together on the things that unite us. We've seen that a lot over the campaign for the hostages. There is a huge degree of unity on that, regardless of where people are on the political spectrum. I think there's unity of purpose on the campaign for the proscription of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran and the threat that Iran poses. So I think that we can, of course, embrace debate and diversity, but actually, when we come together unified on some of these core issues, we will do well. I just want, in credit to Tony, he asked about what is the top, if you had to have your arm twisted, and obviously it is anti-Semitism, and I'll give a bit of an answer more on that. One of the things I want to do is launch a commission on anti-Semitism, where we review a few things. First of all, a review on enforcement that looks at all anti-hate crime legislation, at all policing and prosecution, to see where the gaps are. And I've had, in principle, a judge agree to join that, to review all legislation to look at that issue. The second thing is to look at where the institutions of civil society have failed us, whether that's the media, social media, universities, trade unions, professional bodies, sports bodies and cultural bodies, to come up for each of those with recommendations for what needs to change, working together on that. And third, and very importantly, to come up with a program of education, training and dialogue with different communities. And one thing I really want to do is to create 200 copies of the Jewish Living Experience exhibition so that every one of our communities will have that. Come on. I've actually started talking to some funders. I think it will cost about £1 million, and I've had some conversations with donors who are actually prepared to enter the conversation and quite excited about it. So we've got a lot to do. We need to look at enforcement, we need to look at the institutions of society, but we also need to look at interfaith and education as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if Rabbi Margaret Jacobi is still with us, but we had a really interesting conversation as a result of her question, so I'm going to pose it again, if I may, which was, how do you see the board interacting in the wider British civic space on issues not primarily directed at Jewish concerns? So that would include refugees, asylum seekers, Rwanda. So thank you, Margaret, for that. I'd like you all to have a go at that question. I'm going to come to Sheila first.
Thanks, Karen. I'm going to give a shout out to some people here who are doing amazing Hesed stuff through the United Synagogue. My good friend Hannah Gerson is working with the Hesed, helping refugees and asylum seekers. This work is already happening. My ex-rabbi Mordecai Wallenberg from Woodford Forest is having asylum seeker centres. I have gone to help with the food and the food kitchens, and this when I was a senior vice president. This work is going on. It's laudable. The board needs to support it. We can't do it ourselves, but we need to support all these initiatives and all these charities. And yes, let's have them coming to the board to explain about what they do. We have Zadeh Farm. We have other people have come now, Kisharon, other people who are doing amazing work with the Jewish community and also without. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Jacobi, and hello, Birmingham. Thank you very much for the question. It's one I really liked. I was the first ever social action manager of the Board of Deputies, so it was something that I really feel is very important. And I always used to say to people, because there were some people that were cynical about it, that actually engaging in social action and social justice is both the right thing to do and the smart thing to do. It helps us build coalitions as well as living out our values. And this is not a new invention. The Torah says, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, right? Justice you'll pursue. Our prophetic tradition says you shall fight the cause of the orphan, the widow, and the oppressed. As core to our faith and core to our culture are these inclusive values. I proposed earlier this year a resolution on the cost of living crisis. I think that's something that's really, really important, and I hope the board will deliver more on that than it has done. But it's really, really important thing that we do. Second of all, I was very much involved in eco-Judaism and the Jewish fight and Jewish contribution towards tackling climate change. Religious leaders have a huge impact on that issue. And on the issues of refugees, look, many of us come from those traditions. And whilst there may be some debate, again, I say let's embrace that debate. Let's discuss the issue. I think we are always stronger when we embrace our diversity and discuss the issues, and we're stronger when we can move forward together on that basis. So, yes, Rabbi Jacoby, absolutely crucial that we take action in these spaces.
Thank you. Thank you again for the question. It was social action and social justice that got me involved in the board in the first place. So I feel very strongly that it has a role within the programme of the Board of Deputies. Tikkun Olam, Chesed, is all absolutely, it's in my core. It's something that I do. It's been volunteering and promoting volunteering and social justice is what I've been doing as a career for the last 30 years. So I understand the benefits of it. I understand the benefits to the organisations that we're working with and on the issues that we're working with, and I understand the benefits to the people that get involved with it. In this last triennium, social justice has been led by Amos and Talia, and they've done a terrific job in identifying the issues that deputies really care about and identifying ways that deputies can engage on those issues. And whether that has been the cost of living crisis, whether it's been providing computers and other tech for refugees, whether it's been bringing speakers to the board and to the plenary, there are so many ways that we can have an impact on the issues, the social justice issues that deputies care about, without it taking our eye off the ball of some of the other key issues that we care about. But as others have said, when we're dealing with social justice issues, we're bringing ourselves next to and close to other communities and building alliances that are really valuable. When you build up trustful relationships with organizations and on issues, it pays back dividends when you need them. I just want to feed back one of the things that I was most proud of when I was chair of what we, before the Social Justice Committee, called BODSA, Board of Deputies Social Action. I was really proud of the forums that we brought together in Parliament, where we talked about issues of social welfare, around domestic abuse, where we talked about climate change, and it was under my chairing of the Social Action that we actually piloted eco-Judaism, and I'm so pleased that it went independent. These are all things that we can pilot, we can grow, and then when they take life, we can take pleasure and be proud of the work that we've done on those issues.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Michael.
So we as a religion are caring and we're compassionate, and as individuals, as Jewish individuals, it's really in our heart that that's how we care about people. We need to make sure that the refugees and people who are not Jewish but are under stress are looked after, and that's very important. Beyond the social situation, the terrible situation that these refugees and others that are facing, we as a community have been involved in civic society in Britain for many, many years, and there is a tradition of us doing that. We've got involved in universities, we've got involved in arts, we've got involved in health, welfare, and not just the Jewish part, but it's been the community at large, particularly in the regions, as well as London, I know. I myself chaired the Bradford Regeneration. It was now 20 years ago. but it was something that involved the fact that we had a lot of work to do to try and change what was then a failing town, a failing city. So it's really important that we get our deputies involved in other parts of society other than that of the Jewish community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very aware that it's 8:30, but there are a couple of questions I'd like to ask. Do I have another 10 minutes? Candidates saying yes? Yeah, people saying yes. Elizabeth, can you bear to be tech for another 10 minutes? Yes, and thank you all for staying online. Great. In that case, I see that Rabbi René Pfurzel is up there. He had his hand up before. I don't see his hand up now, but René, if you wanted to ask a question, the floor is yours. Okay, maybe not.
No,
right.
Sorry,
In that, no, great, super. René, you're most welcome. Please ask your question.
Yeah, sorry, it was just a mistake on my part.
There's no. Always lovely to hear your voice, René. Okay, in that case, I would like Harriet. Can you pose your question again, because it seemed a really important question.
Not sure this is working. Is this working? Yes. Okay, good. So yes, here we go again. What efforts should the board be making in interfaith work?
Interfaith, Phil.
Well, thank you for that. I've been active in interfaith for 20 years. I studied Spanish, Hebrew, and Arabic at Oxford and at Hebrew University. Was active in Muslim, Jewish, and Israeli-Palestinian dialogue there, and was the interfaith officer of the board for many years, the director of the Faith Forum for London, the co-chair of the Camden Faith Leaders Forum. Now lead interfaith for Bronsbury Park and special projects to do with Arab Jewish and Shia Muslim Jewish projects with the World Jewish Congress. So it's something that is absolutely essential. And as we've said, this is going to be a really important challenge. You know, on Friday, I did two things. I addressed a primarily Muslim school, what for boys, about Muslim-Jewish relations going forward. And I attended just before Shabbat an iftar with at the Central Mosque of Brent with Sadiq Khan, and it was these are really, really important conversations. A lot of Muslim organisations actually do want to work with us, but there are challenges. You know, my attendance at that mosque was attacked by an Islamist extremist organisation online who want to divide our communities, and we have to be alive to those challenges to strengthen moderate voices and to build bridges. One of the things I think is really promising is the work that we've done with, among others, the Association of Muslim Schools, who actually have taken Judaism on as their second subject and want to do more. I've had ongoing conversations with them and other Muslim leaders over the last 6 months where, you know, let's see what more we can do together. So there are clearly challenges, but I'm excited what we can do in the space. The last thing I'd say is, again, this comes down to the 300 deputies. If we can get all 300 deputies to get to know their local Muslim leaders, the local Christian leaders and Hindu, Sikh and other leaders, then we can scale that relationship across the community. I know here you're doing great work already, but if we can do that, model that across the country, that is the game changer.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to telescope your answer so that we can maybe just squeeze whatever we can squeeze in. Michael, please, interfaith.
That's an excellent question, thank you. So just continuing where I finished about Bradford, prior to my involvement in Bradford, we as a company was employing over 9,000 people. Many of them were across different faiths. And in working those faiths, we made sure that we respected them. And it was that work that I had done and my personnel department had done and we had developed that got me involved in Bradford, where I did get involved in interfaith work initially. I'm currently the vice chairman of the Faith and Belief Forum. It is one of the most important interfaith organisations in the country. I know that Sheila's also been involved with them. And one of the things that we have done with Maccabi GB is set up the community fun run, of which I believe that there are people here today who were on the first interfaith fun run that we held. The reason for doing an interfaith fun run rather than an interfaith sports event is that you're all running the same way. If we're playing football against each other, I'm facing the chairs, people there are facing me. So it's really important in running together. This was something that I came up with and we've done. I also worked with my rabbi in Marble Arch, where we had an iftar a couple of years ago, which was an exceptional success. And finally, in business, the British Israel Chamber of Commerce, we took a trip to to Israel and to various other parts around Israel. We went to Jericho, we went to Bethlehem to try and set up business amongst faith leaders. So thank you. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Sheila.
Thank you. Really good question, Harriet. Thank you. Feeds right into what Michael was saying about the Faith and Belief Forum. I was really honoured to be appointed a Deputy Lieutenant for Greater London in 2015, and I am working with the Lieutenancy on a Council of Faith. We have really good links. I'm working with leaders right across all the other religions. It's not just Muslim. We have strong Sikh, strong Hindu representation. I'm on SACRES, the Standing Advisory Councils for Religious Education, all over the UK. I was on a panel speaking at an interfaith with Baha'i and humanist and Buddhist people, and it's really important that we educate people that Muslim and Jews, it's the real issue at the moment, I know, but there are lots of other faiths out there. We need to hear these people at the board. We need to support an initiative where people can respect and know the rich diversity of our country. But there is a word of warning. I've been asked to join a group. It's a leading charitable organisation as part of their strategic advisory group. I have declined and sent back my invitation because there's a prescribed Muslim group member who's actually on this committee, and I was advised by a member of the CST who saw my face on the Zoom call and called me and said, we need to pull out. So we need to be really careful who we engage with as well, okay? But it's a marvellous idea to have more involvement with all faiths and none. Thank you.
Thanks. Look, I think we've all heard Marie say at plenaries that it's really hard to do good interfaith engagement right now. But I also feel that it's more important than ever that we are doing interfaith engagement right now. The solution to the fact that it's difficult is not to shut down those conversations or those connections. We need to be doing more, and we need to be doing it better. And we maybe have to have some realistic expectations about what that interfaith engagement means right now. But only when we're around the table, and especially when we are building up a level of trust that we can agree and disagree respectfully, can we start building towards a place where we want to be, a short-term and then later a longer-lasting connection between the faiths. I think we also need to remember that it's not just about Muslim-Jewish relations. That's really hard right now, and it's certainly hard at a national level and at an infrastructure level. But there is so much going on a local basis that we should still be celebrating. And Phil talked about capturing what's working. And I completely agree. We need to capture from deputies what's working. We need to codify it. We need to share it. We need to have communities mentoring communities so that more can go on. It just, as I talked about with social justice, it's this kind of activity that helps us break down barriers and create community cohesion.
Thank you so much. We do need to bring things to a close, and I do want to give you both all a couple of minutes to sum up. I do just want to tell you, though, we've had a couple of really brilliant questions that we haven't had time for. So if you have anything to say about this that you can weave into your final 2 minutes, that would be absolutely fabulous. One is from Joe Grabina-Wolfson. I don't think that Joe's still online, but his question, he said, Israel's action in this ongoing war in Gaza have, amongst other things, pushed a large number of young progressive Jews away from Zionism and a notion that Israel can be an acceptable part of Jewish identity. What steps would you take as an HO to respond to this challenging trend? So it's a question about young people, and you can take that into experience on campus or whatever you want, but I'm very aware that we haven't had the young person's question. And the second one was from Karen Maxwell, who I think is still there, but she wanted us to ask the question, what will you do to activate or engage deputies more, including how to change the current plenary format? So that's a very different level of question. So I'm sorry to do that to you, because I'm sure you've all got you know what you want to say in your 2 minutes. So I'll be as generous as I can time-wise. I see from the corner of my mind that Jeremy is leaving to go back to Manchester. Safe journey, and thank you for coming and being with us in person. Thank you. And we can't say goodbye to Owen because he's already gone. So a question on young people, a question on changing the plenary, and your last 2 minutes to explain to progressive deputies why we should vote for you. Michael, the floor is yours.
Rabbonim, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participating this evening. I've learned a great deal that will help inform my campaign. The board must lead and must inspire confidence. More of the same simply isn't an option. The world we live in needs strong, experienced and effective leadership. There are many views amongst the deputies as to what the priorities are. I will listen to those views, but I believe we need to take on the challenges of anti-Semitism and poverty immediately and act now. And this requires us to work together as a community. And that, in fact, leads on to the point about the plenary. I think it is important that we do see some changes in the plenary. I do think that it's about how we conduct ourselves at the plenary as much as the format of it. But I think that if we try to introduce some new ideas, which I've got around speakers, I think that we can start to see a more cohesive and a friendlier plenary, that everybody can go away, as they do in the F&O division. We've had some great fun during the last year since I took over as treasurer, and there's been a good respect at the end of each meeting. On young people, I have spoken quite a bit this evening about young people. It is really important that we reach out and we really get them involved. I've been involved with young people throughout all my working life and my charity life, and that is something that I will seek to reach out to you. And let me conclude. I have a large amount of experience in leadership, in running organizations. I've had vice chairman of UJIA. I chaired Western Marble Arch, Maccabi, British Israel Chamber of Commerce, even LFI a long time ago. If we are divided, there is little we can do. However, if we are united, there is little we cannot do. Now is your opportunity to make changes to those who are elected to the board, and for us to have new, strong, effective and experienced leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. Amanda.
Thank you. I'm going to stand up. Need to get some oxygen. So I'm going to start off. I thought I had a minute, Karen, so I'm going to spend a minute talking the answers to all my some perspectives on your question. Young people in Israel, or young progressive Jews in Israel, I think, and them turning away. I think that what's happened since October the 7th has changed a lot of people's perspectives and has brought Israel right up to the front of people's minds, and they've been challenged by what they've seen. And we need to find ways for us all to come together to have those conversations, whether that's young people together or older people together. Whether it's the board is the right place for that to happen, I think we can do that with our under-35s, and I would hope that, I don't know if Noah's still with us, but I know he was here before, Noah Katz, who is the chair of the under-35 Assembly. I would challenge him to look at how we can engage our young deputies in that. But I think it's also down to the youth movements and down to the denominations and the rabbis to start facilitating those conversations so that as we educate and as we continue our dialogue, we start having a different framing of our conversations around Israel. In terms of plenaries, I think there's a huge amount that we need to do in terms of culture change at the board, and that will certainly be one of the things that I'll be looking at. I think there are loads of ways that we can change plenaries, and there are loads of ideas that have been coming in, and loads of ideas that I've been hearing from deputies as I've been talking with them. And I think, from my perspective, I think we just need to try some of these things. We don't need to get it right all the time. We just need to try, and if we fail, adapt and try it again. But absolutely, I think there's more ways to engage people more fully during plenaries. There are different ways to be doing things, different times of the day, different places, hybrid, in person. There's a huge combinations of things that we could be doing. But why should you vote for me? My mission is for the board to be transparent, accountable, sustainable, a source of pride and inspiration. I'll make sure that the board is relevant and responsive to our community's needs, and drawing on my experience will forge a stronger, more resilient Board of Deputies. With 6 years as Vice President of Defence, I bring invaluable insights and relationships. I've fought against hate, defended our traditions, and advocated for our community. Now I'm ready to lead us to a brighter future. Deputies can expect strong leadership rooted in service to the community. My promise to you is clear. I will stand strong, protect and unify our community in purpose. I will listen to and empower deputies in our communities, and will create a board that is a beacon of hope and strength for generations to come. So I ask you to back me for a better board, a board that's unified, empowered, and transformed. Together, let us build a future where our Jewish identity flourishes, where our voices are heard, and where our community stands proud and strong. And Karen, I'll give you the credit.
Thank you. So I feel terrible doing this, but I'm aware we're 15 minutes over time, and I want to be fair to those online and people who have journeys. Thank you so much. Phil.
Thank you so much. Look, we need to build a bridge to new generations, and something has been made of the fact that if elected, I'd be the youngest ever president of the Board of Deputies. And whilst it's exciting, the idea of breaking the glass ceiling, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the experience, connections, and energy that I believe the board needs to take us forward. To Joe's question, we shouldn't fear diversity or debate. We actually should embrace it, because I think that makes us stronger, and I think that's really important, which ties very nicely with Karen's question. With the plenaries, look, I would appoint an independent chair because I want to change the dynamic of those meetings. I want to have more debate and discussion at those meetings, that there'll be forums and discussion, but not just at the meetings. We can use new digital tools to run snap polls of deputy opinion between meetings as well. I'd like to change the culture. I'd like to see if we can institute a kiddush at the end of the plenary, so that deputies can actually socialise and get to know each other. I think actually we should change the dynamic a bit, and I think that would make things very positive. And very importantly, I'd like to review accessibility. So first of all, the timings to make sure regional deputies can get there, but also thinking about things like childcare. We don't see many parents of young children actually at board meetings, and if we had a creche or something, maybe we'd include that demographic as well. Look, as a community, we're facing a really tough time. We all know it, we all face it, we all experience it. But I'm determined that after the winter, spring will come. We've just entered Purim, we're heading towards Pesach. And, as a community, we've weathered worse. And I think actually facing the future with confidence and with pride is the way to go. And so I ask you, on the 12th of May, to look to choose the future and make history together. We can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everybody. You've been really good. Thank you, and thank you, everybody, for hosting us. So I'll answer the questions first, if I may. Young people, Israelis. I've been supporting a peace campus at a university where there are young Israeli students affected by what's going on who've lost all their friends overnight. I've been making regular trips to support these people through the chaplaincy of all denominations, and this has been really successful. We really need to realise that what's going on out there is really troubling for them, and they need our support. Plenaries. Yes, Phil, it might be nice to have an independent chair, but I think the deputies might like to debate this on whether or not they think it's a good idea. So yes, let's have more debate. Let's have one topic put forward each year from each division, so we can have a debate every alternative plenary and get some speakers in. And yes, we need more civil respect for each other. That will be down to the chair. An independent chair may help with that, but let's talk about all these issues. The format of the plenary is down to the deputies, so let's talk about it. And I would like to see one plenary a year, just a plenary in the regions, irrespective of numbers. You know, Ben, you're going to be the new treasurer. You know, you will be the new treasurer. Let's really look at this. It doesn't have to be a whole weekend, but let's get out there. People in South London feel disadvantaged, you know. Let's think about how we can move these things around. Now, for me, I have been senior vice president, vice president. I've had 6 years' experience of deputised for the president on overseas trips. I have the skills, the experience, the passion, the energy, and the time. And my 3 priorities for running the board would be fighting anti-Semitism, shouting louder than our enemies, educating about being Jewish in the UK today, and about Israel, and involving all the deputies. Let's reinstigate the skills register. Let's have an analysis of this at the beginning of every triennium, using deputies as volunteers so we don't have to use staff resource. Let's bring everybody together, work together for an amazing new triennium, which, please God, if you vote for me, I will chair. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. So, ladies and gentlemen here and online, these are your fantastic candidates to be President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Thank you so very much for being here. Before I give you, Josh, the mic, I personally need to thank you, Elizabeth Roshman, for just handling the tech. Thank you.
Great. So I am Rabbi Josh Levy. I'm the Chief Executive of Reform Judaism and co-lead of Progressive Judaism in the UK. And I had a whole load of Torah to teach at the end. But the thing you learn first if you want to really be good at public work is when enough's enough. So I just have the blessing of saying thank you. I want to say thank you to Tony and to Karen for hosting, and Karen for being our question master this evening. Thank you so much. Thank you to those vice presidential candidates and our presidential candidates for being here and for sharing with us. I also just want to say a larger thank you to everyone who commits time to the good of community. Actually, we are blessed as a community in our diversity, in our disagreement, that our disagreements are in the main machloket l'shem shamayim, they're disagreements for the sake of heaven, and we are blessed with amazing people who do amazing things and give of their time generously and wholeheartedly for our benefit. And so not just those who want to be president or vice president, but also those who are currently president, and everyone who serves as a deputy. We are grateful to you, so thank you, and we look forward to following what happens over the next few weeks. Thanks again. Good night, and thank you for joining us at home. Good night.
Very good. Tony, thank you. It's okay. Good. Enjoy that. I did. Sorry.
Good work out for the rest of the day. Well done.